Bernie Sanders, someone that you might have heard of, someone who, I don't know. We've talked about every now and then. I feel like
he comes up occasionally.
Exactly. So Bernie Sanders, the person that the media, but a few months ago, even weeks ago, didn't really pay any attention to, didn't really believe in, is now winning in both New Hampshire and California. Let's talk about it. So really quickly, the New Hampshire one just came out today after we pretty much put our show notes together. He's winning in a new poll by 12 points. That seems pretty good.
Yep,
and
double digits.
Double digits, but New Hampshire is a very small state. It's important momentum-wise, second state to be picked in a primary. But the big one, California, is what we're going to talk about mainly. And Sanders is leading in that by 4 points. So let's talk about it. Sanders is leading in California. The survey shows that he has 28% lead among California voters who are planning to vote, with Joe Biden only at 24%. In the previous election, 2016, Sanders got 46% of the vote. And if everyone remembers California, they literally announced, all the press announced the day of that primary that Hillary Clinton had won. So with all that said, he lost by only a few points, which is kind of the summation of his entire 2016 run. Warren has 12%. Buttigieg has 8%. California has 495 delegates to dole out, so it's a really big state to be in. Now, Bloomberg,
I just want to clarify before you get too far. He's not winning by 27%. He's winning with 27%. 28%.
He's winning by 4 points. He's leading. He's leading.
Leading by 4 points, but winning with 28% of the vote.
He has the biggest minority.
There you go.
And momentum will most likely make it larger. So Bloomberg, what do you think of Bloomberg? So Bloomberg's put in like $1/5 of $1 billion at this point on TV ads. By the way, the networks love him. I'm not sure why. Maybe there's a correlation. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. But he has put $24 million in ads into California, and he still only has like 6%. Meanwhile, people like Andrew Yang, who is crowdfunded for the most part, though he does have a bit of PAC money, but just for comparison, has 5%. And so it shows money can't buy everything in these elections. Maybe it could in the past, but not today. And then Steyer, who is only a single-digit billionaire, I feel so bad for the man, has 3%, whereas Amy Klobuchar, the person that the media is acting like, for example, the New York Times has just endorsed, has 2%. So, they're really stuck in those games with people they think can win. And this was a poll of 2,000 Californians from the 3rd to the 10th. And as we know, Sanders keeps doing better and better basically every single day this month. So these numbers are probably a few points more in Sanders' favor right now, but we don't have those numbers.
A couple of key points, I think, that shouldn't be missed here. California is a massive state. It has a lot of delegates. That's nothing to sneeze at. California moved up its primary, right? In the 2016 primaries, California was voting on its own day, the very last state to vote. Now it is part of Super Tuesday. Much earlier. That affects later states voting. I mean, it is part of sort of the big Super Tuesday vote, so it doesn't get influenced by that vote particularly, but it will be influenced, obviously, by Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina.
And ironically, this move was here to help Kamala Harris, who is, of course, still in the race. And that's part of the reason that I was so convinced over a year ago when we were trying to figure out, it was even like more than a year ago, it was back when we were at Q4, and I was like, it's probably going to come down to the next election, this election we're at. I think it was 2 years ago I made the prediction it was going to be between Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, and I made a big assumption with that because, and no other reason, well, there's a few other reasons, but mainly because California had been pushed up, and I'm like, oh, the institutional power is definitely behind Kamala Harris. That's who they're going with. I didn't really expect Biden to be as big of a player or even join as he is now.
Or Tulsi to play, giant slayer.
Yes,
yeah. That was the big blow. Someone to point out, like, hey, your record as a prosecutor is abysmal. You should get out of this race. I'm a top-tier candidate.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that. So now, actually, ironically, the Democratic Party, I want to I want to thank the Democratic Party for helping Bernie Sanders win unintentionally, because by moving the California Super Tuesday into Super Tuesday, they're actually really benefiting Bernie Sanders because he's doing the best there. He has the biggest organization. He has the best name recognition. And they were going to give it to Kamala Harris, but now that she's gone, it's Bernie Sanders that is taking that huge delegate cake in California. And ironically enough, this was also a thing that we called about 2 years ago, is that it really has helped that there is really it's like Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and
Everyone else.
Everyone else. And the borderline people who are, far more borderline than they used to be would be Andrew Yang and Elizabeth Warren, but they're not doing too well either. And versus like a dozen establishment people. Right. So Sanders is able to basically walk in a field that's this crowded where the vote has been split amongst the establishment people, but not amongst progressives, especially with the latest actions of Elizabeth Warren. He's going to be able to walk into Iowa, and we just covered yesterday that the bettors, the people who actually make money and are trying to be as accurate as possible for their own self-interest, said that he's most likely to win the first 3 states in a row. So with all that being said, we can only expect his lead to get bigger in California.
Path to victory is the term you're going to hear, and it's real. So one of the things I wanted to point out, since we were talking about other candidates, it still baffles me that Biden does as well as he does in the polling. I'm watching to see when those numbers crack, because it just defies logic. I mean, the guy is gaffe central. That's one way of putting it. He's also just horrible policy. He's got a history of terrible governing. There's just really, who are his supporters? Where is his base? Where are his donations, right? How is it that he is polling as high as he is? And I'm expecting that to crack probably after Iowa, Nevada, all that stuff. Elizabeth Warren, I think I continue to see this interesting line of reasoning come through, because she's one of those middle ground candidates that we talk about, right?
Yeah.
She's not your billionaire candidate. She's not Bloomberg. She's not Biden. She's not a corporate Democrat. I mean, at least that's her persona. People will often say, "Oh, her policies are very good. She just isn't very good at playing politics. Her political impulses are not very good."
Yeah, you could say that again.
And it's like, yeah, of course her political impulses aren't good. We've gone after her quite a bit for her very ham-fisted attempts to make a fight between her camp and the Bernie camp.
By the way, did you see them holding hands in some new pictures?
I didn't, but I'm sure.
I'll say I called. I was saying, remember I was saying that Warren is probably going to back Bernie when it comes down to it, and people are like, "Oh, is it?" It's like, no, because Warren is a smart, calculated politician, and she's going to go where the wind is blowing. And if she sees Sanders as being the presidential candidate, she's going to go, "I'm endorsing Bernie."
Right. So, but what I wanted to get at was I want to try to chip away also at her policies are good, because they're not really. They seem to be designed to sound good and kind of look good. And we've covered it in the past on this show, particularly her Medicare for All scaffolding plan. Let's Medicare for later.
That's it. That should be on a T-shirt.
Yeah. So her policies are not really that good. I think the way that she talks about it, her rhetoric kind of touches the right touchstones that you would need for a progressive sounding campaign, but her policies don't really reflect that. They use some of that language, but I will push back against the idea that she has good policy ideas. They're complex policy ideas, but I think complex, sort of an overcomplication as a means to obfuscation sort of situation.
As a final note, I'll say that her complexity is like complexity in a rocket engine. You don't want that. You want it to be as simple as possible for it to work and not break.
Look at us with the good sayings today.